Assalamu alaikum, peace be with you and welcome to Islam and Life with me, Tariq Ramadan, broadcasting from London. In today's show we ask the question, will the desecration of Islamic sites erase Islamic history?
Over recent years, Islamic heritage has seen an enormous loss in its sites across the board. While some are openly targeted and bombed by terrorist groups, as is the case in Iraq in particular, others are demolished for so-called development reasons. Saudi Arabia, which holds Islam's holiest cities, has increased its development and construction in the Islamic regions of Mecca and Medina. Statistics show 96% of Islamic heritage sites in the country have been destroyed and replaced with public buildings, including the house of the wife of the Prophet, which has been made into a public toilet. A cemetery which hosts early Islamic figures including family members and companions of the Prophet himself has also been destroyed. This month, terrorist groups desecrated and exhumed the grave of a great companion of the Prophet during the current war in Syria. This week's Islam and Life asks, will the desecration of Islamic sites erase Islamic history?
There are many reasons why what we are witnessing now is happening. Because of wars, as it was said in the clip, and this is true that we have wars in the Middle East and many places have been destroyed. It's also because of these new buildings and because there is a way of modernizing and welcoming the pilgrims when they come and not even giving enough value to these historic places and so important places when it comes to our memory. And it's also because some interpretations of Islam are saying that we should avoid anything which has to do with shirk, association, and worshipping or celebrating places, while the only thing which is important is to believe in one God, at Tawheed. And because of these interpretations, it's as if we should just erase everything and not have anything which has to do with history. This is a very deep discussion, and this is a very dangerous take when it comes to the memory. Anything about Islam is about dhikr, it's about remembrance and historical remembrance. It's important because this is the way we deal with our legacy, we deal with our history, we deal with the dignity of the people who came before us, and of course, most importantly, the messenger, peace be upon him. So how do we deal with this? What could be the answers that we are bringing to this question when we see in the West so much money put in order to preserve, in order to protect heritage, in order to protect places? It's not enough the case in Muslim majority countries, and especially now in Mecca and around Mecca. So how can we do this, and how can we improve this awareness within the Muslim majority countries and among Muslims? To answer all these questions, I'm joined by Sarah Bukhari, the co-founder of Save Muslim Heritage. Thank you so much for being with us. You are the co-founder of an important organization. So if you started this organization, it's because you thought and saw that things were going wrong in Muslim majority countries when it comes to the sacred places, the heritage. Tell us what in fact is happening which is so problematic as for you to create an organization spreading awareness of what is happening. So what is happening now?
Absolutely. I mean, growing up, I'd always hear in the news articles of Saudi Arabia destroying heritage, and growing up, increasingly this seems to be more the case as the years go by. However, what recent events occurred in Syria and the initiation of our campaign Save Muslim Heritage is something which has only actually been created very recently. And the reason being is because events that have unfolded in Syria, and specifically we saw in the promo video to the grave of Hujr ibn Adi, a revered companion of the Holy Prophet of Islam. And the fact that the perpetrators went to the extent of not only desecrating a shrine, not only demolishing it to rubble, but they also went to the extent of attempting to exhume a body. Now, this is something that, as far as I'm aware, in the years that I've witnessed Islamic heritage being destroyed, I've never heard of perpetrators actually going to this extent. So I think more than anything that it's a wake-up call of what's going on in Syria, and certain other World Heritage sites have been destroyed as well. It's a wake-up call to realize that we as Muslims everywhere, not just in the Middle East, however in the West, have a crucial role in attempting to oppose this and raising our voices to raise awareness so that this stops.
Okay, so that's an important point. It's not only in Muslim majority countries, it's not only in Saudi Arabia, it's in Syria, it's in many other places where the Muslims seem not to be aware that there is a richness, there is something which is of value in the heritage, in the places, in the constructions, in architecture. And when we come back, for example, the only example here being in Europe, it's to talk about Andalusia and to say, look, what is happening there was protected by even people who are not Muslims, but at the end it's so central in the Islamic psyche, heritage, memory in the West, in Europe, to say we have been here for centuries and this was a great contribution. So my take on this, how the people are reacting to what you are doing. So first you saw the problem, and then you created and founded this organization. How do you see the reaction coming from the Muslims?
The problem that we discovered was the fact that there wasn't much media coverage on what is happening, specifically in Syria. So Saudi Arabia, like I said, recently The Independent had highlighted it in 2011 that Mecca is turning into a new Las Vegas. And so, for example, with Syria, what was happening, we realized that not enough awareness was being raised. So Muslims themselves were very unaware. So as a result, we decided that one of the main aims of the campaign was actually to raise awareness so that people actually feel that they feel an affiliation with these sites. And I think the main point that we're trying to highlight is the fact that if these sites carry on being desecrated, then the future generations, what will we refer to? I mean, we are witnessing these being destroyed as we stay here. So we're trying to raise as much awareness as possible, and the response in general, as people find out, is they've been overwhelmed, they've been shocked. I mean, in our local town, we went and actually spoke to our local mayor, and he was absolutely outraged by what was happening. So I think the general response when people are actually aware of it is outrage, shock, and they want to get involved as much as possible, which is very positive. However, one of the initial the challenges that we're facing is actually raising that awareness in the first place.
So to raise awareness, but even if the people know what is happening, for example, it is known, all what is happening in Saudi Arabia, but many people, of course, average Muslims could not know what is happening, but it's known. We know what is happening, and the new constructions and buildings, these huge things, is just unbelievable what is happening. And still, the reactions are very weak. How do you explain this? Why the Muslims are not so much reacting to this? How would you explain that?
I think in a lot of circumstances, many of us feel helpless, and especially in the West, because, for example, in Syria, there's militias. I've heard there's militias that have joined arms in order to defend shrines that they feel that have specific value and importance to them. So in the West, a lot of us can almost fool ourselves with this excuse that we're not in that part of the world, so even though it's our heritage, there's not much we can do to preserve it. And also the overwhelming power. I mean, Muslim heritage sites have been destroyed as early as 1800. So 1806, I think I read, was the earliest date. So, for example, the fact that this has been going for so long and nothing has been done about it up till date, it kind of puts this pressure on people to think that who am I as an individual to actually raise my voice and make a change? However, especially living in a democratic society, that we're very blessed that we have something here that people in the Middle East may not, and we have the ability to raise our voices, and enough, I mean, you could call it reform, you could call it revolutions. Enough revolutions have been formed when people actually unite in a cause. So I think the main point is that Muslims may feel a bit helpless, may hear about the or perhaps they haven't themselves visited such shrines to feel the affiliation to them. But it's very important for us to raise our voices.
Let me ask you a question, because I was saying in the introduction that this could be done because of war. This could be the destruction and desecration could be done because of war. It could be because of new buildings, as it happens, but it also could be done because some trends among Muslims are saying, look, if we go for the shrines, for example, and we protect them, we end up having people celebrating, worshipping the places, and in fact not understanding that these are means to something which is beyond, which is the tawheed, the oneness of God. So this kind of shirk is something that we should avoid. This is why we are not keeping the shrines, we are not keeping the places. And you have some trends among and some understanding among Muslims that we have to be careful not to worship the places. So to keep them is a way of worshipping them. What would be your answer coming from your organization?
Absolutely. I mean, shirk is completely forbidden in Islam, and it goes beyond the point. I mean, if you look at it from a very simplistic point of view, when your own member of your family passes away, you want to feel that closeness to them by visiting the graveyard, and you're not worshipping the person you're visiting, you're just paying your respects and regards. And with this very simple idea, you can put it applies to the same thing. Whereas in the religion of Islam, when you say the Holy Prophet of Islam, his revered companions, his family, they are meant to be more beloved and more dear to us than perhaps our own family members, because they are the reason that we live the life that we do. They gave us, through their sacrifices, the religion that we have. So in the same way, going to pay your regards and respects, in no way is it idol worshipping. It's simply using that person to thank them for the sacrifices they made for the religion. And I'm entirely unsure as to how this gets involved with the concept of shirk or associating partners to Allah, because
because you have some people, saints that are perceived as, we can pray for them, they will pray for us even if they are. So this kind of worship, but your point is a very fair point. What you are saying is the exact opposite, is in fact by paying respect, by coming back to remember the people, it might be even a better way to worship God. It's a way to remember, it's not a way to worship, which is completely different, and this is a very important point. Now, if we have to deal with the Muslims around the world, you are living in the UK, you are in the West, to raise awareness here or to raise awareness in Muslim majority countries, what is your strategy? What can we do, in fact? Because it's true that you feel helpless when you see what is happening, but still, it's still time to do something. So what are the steps?
First of all, I actually absolutely appreciate the fact that you said strategy, because I think it's vital that we use a strategy. It's many of us can collectively go in small groups, scattered groups, and try and make a difference. However, if we do it united and we actually have an action plan in our minds, then we're more likely to be successful. So as a campaign, as you've rightly said, the strategy that we're trying to aim for is, first of all, like I said, raise awareness through the means of social media, because most people are on social media in some way or another. So we have a Facebook account, we have a Twitter account, and we're trying to use different means as videos, promo videos, to raise awareness of the issue in the first place. Furthermore, the strategy that we're actually trying to implement is something that we apply to our own local town. So what we're trying to do is get any individual, any member of a community can do this. So we've got a letter of petition, and we've basically given spaces for people to sign here. So an individual will form a group, so just even if it's 2 individuals, can go to their local community leaders and people who are influential within the community. So that might be professionals, it might be religious leaders, irrespective of sectarian differences. And then they'll sign this letter of petition in a meeting, and then this letter will then go forward to the local MP. So the strategy we're trying to ultimately raise is the fact that every local constituent has a right to go to their MP, and the MP will then furthermore take this forward to the relevant governmental offices. So in this case it would be the Foreign and Commonwealth Office. So if we get even 50 constituents that are doing this, or 30, 40, however many it is, and this issue is raised to the government, the MP has, it's his duty, or his or her duty, to take forward the concerns of his constituents to the higher authorities in the government. So as a collective community, we're trying to utilise it on an individual, community and a national level. So if it's literally through the means of raising awareness, if people get involved, then we will make a difference. But it is entirely down to individuals to get involved.
So individuals to go to a national campaign in order to raise awareness even of the MPs and the government. But once again, you are doing this here. Yeah. What are we going to protect here in the UK? Is it something which is protecting for here in the UK, or you want it to have an international impact? It's
more of an international impact that we're aiming for, but we acknowledge the fact that in order to get our voices heard, first of all, we do have to have an impact nationally. So as a collective Muslim community, and the fact of the matter is that it's not even just Muslim heritage that's being destroyed. For example, in Syria, it is Christian heritage, Jewish heritage. So we're generally trying to raise awareness that this is a humanitarian crime, and it's not something that is just affecting one community, it's something that is a huge concern to us. So if we raise awareness within our respective countries or communities, then hopefully on an international basis, our voices will be voiced and they'll be expressed too.
But what could you expect from governments? Because this is the point. You are raising awareness of the people, and the governments sometimes they are working for their interest. You can find people telling you, oh, you want to work in the UK, and yet when we had this invasion in Iraq, they protected oil and they let the National Library to be completely destroyed. So they are not the best to come to teach us how to protect the heritage. What is your take? What are you expecting?
That's an absolutely fair point, because a lot of people have raised this concern. However, our aim in this campaign is to actually do as much as we can in our countries, and even if they go to that extent of ignoring us, or even if they choose to turn a blind eye, that isn't our concern. Our concern is the fact that we did what we could in the capacity that we have, because just because we aren't in those countries, we aren't present in Syria, we aren't present in Saudi Arabia, doesn't mean that we can't do what we have or utilize what we have in these countries to make a difference. So in this country, what we do have on our side as Muslims is the system of democracy. If you create enough noise, if you protest, then the most we're aiming for is a condemnation from the government, to raise awareness through the media, so that the media outlets in this country raise the issue and actually start reporting it as something that is not a sectarian issue, as for example the New York Times reported it as a completely sectarian issue of what was happening in Syria, but something that is a humanitarian issue and affects many people, not just Muslims but Christians, like I said, and other.
Yes, but are you not? Don't you fear that, while we don't know how to protect human life, you are coming with protecting, legacy? The people are saying, is this the priority now? Look at what is happening in Syria, in other places. People are being killed. And then that's true, even the heritage and all these places that should be protected are not, because even human life is not protected. So how do you put your priority, and what should be the priority in the whole process?
I personally, obviously the political situation is completely dire in Syria, and it's tragic to hear about the news that's happening. But the distinction with Islamic heritage is that I don't think it's something that can be compared to. It's not human life versus Islamic heritage. Islamic heritage has an intrinsic value within itself, and we need to recognise the fact that if it is destroyed, then the future generations that are to come are going to have detrimental consequences on them. For example, when I was growing up, I used to go visiting these sites of Islamic heritage was something that actually cemented my affiliation to religion and actually made me appreciate my religion to a huge extent. So it had a personal impact on me. So to imagine a life in the future where, for example, my children or future generations won't be able to have that Islamic heritage, it's something that will have a effect on the sustainability of our history in the future. So when it comes to comparing it to human life, I don't think that's a valid argument, because each has its own priority in its own way. And by destroying it, we can't turn back the hands of time.
So priority is not mutually exclusive. That this is once again something which is important. Now you are working in the UK. While I think that when talking to some of the people, and especially, people who are dealing with this issue in Saudi Arabia, they were saying, the government is not aware, they don't care, or they are promoting an understanding of Islam which is completely against anything which has to do with protection. It's just Tawheed and the oneness of God. Is just forget about everything else. Don't worship or don't celebrate the places, but worship God. This is the understanding. Don't you think that what is important now is also to work in Muslim majority countries with the people who have an impact on the average Muslims, the scholars, the intellectuals? Do you think that this could help to change the situation?
Absolutely. To some extent, yes, but then to another extent, like you said, the authorities who, for example, in Saudi Arabia, they themselves are completely working with this agenda. And sometimes it does feel like a bit of a helpless cause. And a lot of people have said to us, are you really appealing to non-Muslims to help you save Muslim heritage? It's almost embarrassing to an extent. But the fact is that, like I said, we're trying to approach this issue from a completely humanitarian point of view, because, like I said, like you're saying, the interpretation of Islam that these people are pushing forward as an agenda, it completely goes against the preservation of Islamic heritage. So the only people that we can really appeal to is people who have a bit of humanitarian dignity in them. And, for example, even the head of a great organisation, I can't remember the specific name right now, but he said that it's actually a war crime to destroy Islamic heritage. And he wasn't a Muslim, he wasn't someone who has affiliation to Islam, but he said Islam is a religion of tolerance and respect. So if you appeal to people with humanity, I really don't think this is exclusive to just religion. This is something that affects, it affects all sorts of people from different walks
And very
of life.
quickly, if you have to assess the situation, are we now in danger? Do you see a very, very serious danger?
To Islamic heritage in general?
Yeah.
Absolutely, it's like the promo said, 96% of our Islamic heritage in Saudi Arabia has been destroyed already. 500 to 600 sites have been destroyed. Syria, bodies, they've not only attempted to exhume that body, but they've actually threatened to go forward and do the same to much greater shrines and sites of Islamic heritage. So I think the situation we're in is very dire, and it increases the need for us to act with urgency as a united Muslim nation.
Thank you so much. I think that what you are doing is very important for three reasons that we have been talking about right now. The first is it's happening now. It's happening for many reasons, because of war, because of construction and buildings, and also because of a very specific understanding of what Islam is all about. And I think that what we are trying to do is really resisting this. The second point that you was mentioning and highlighting is raising awareness is the big challenge, and to have a strategy working in the West to start with, because this is where you live, but also being connected to some of the people, intellectuals and scholars who can help in Muslim majority country could be important. And the last point is not to think about priorities in a way which is mutually exclusive. It's not because we are protecting life that we should forget about protecting our heritage. And the last point that you made, which is important, is this could help the Muslims to worship better instead of indulging into association or a wrong understanding of Islam. Well, that's all we have time for. Please let us know your thoughts and views on any of the shows you have seen, and here is the way to contact us.
Islam and Life welcomes your opinion, so please send us your suggestions as well as criticism on any of the shows you have seen or you would like to see. You can share your thoughts with the other Islam and Life fans, engage with debate and view past shows on our social media platforms. Tweet us at Islam and Life TV or join us on Facebook by liking our page Islam and Life on Press TV, where you can share your thoughts with other Islam and Life fans, engage with debate and view past shows.
Finally, I would like to thank my guest, Sarah Bukhari. Thank you so much for your insight, your presence, and the work that you are doing. And I hope to see you next week, inshallah.
you.